Welcome to another episode of the Crypto Spender Podcast. First up, Mining Max Pyramid Scheme comes crashing down. So this should have been very obvious, since the whole thing was incentivizing people to recruit more people into the system. Right then and there, you should know it wasn't really a mining company and more of a pyramid scheme from the start. And it started to crumble once these new lower level members weren't receiving the payouts they expected. But still, this Mining Max managed to get away with $250 million, with $110 million probably stowed away somewhere in an offshore account. And I'd say we need to stay vigilant for all these things and try to expose them, but as you know, greed clouds a lot of people, and even when the signs are obvious, people will still defend these types of things to their deaths, basically. So there still should be community awareness to be made, just so people who haven't got into it are aware to avoid it. But most of the time, it's pretty difficult to convince someone who's already been put into the system because they paid into it. So I didn't even really know about this mining Mad Max pyramid scheme. But then again, I really don't look into much mining related things nowadays compared to when crypto was really just starting off. Next up is a think tank has linked rising Bitcoin price to increased terror usage. I mean, terrorists will use all resources available, so this isn't surprising. And in reality, it hasn't even become a problem yet. It's just something they foresee that could be a problem. And so far, if you look at this article the source article, you'll see that most of the time they lack the technical prowess to even utilize a better coin a better privacy coin, or even utilize Bitcoin at all, considering the certain campaign that this article points out was a really failed one that didn't even get close to 1 Bitcoin. So this is really just kind of alarmist right now, and it really isn't a problem yet. And I covered a situation sometime this month of a woman getting fraudulent loans and then converting it to Bitcoin and sending it to ISIS. But even in that case, she should have been stopped when she was getting all these fraudulent loans. So all in all, you can really see that kind of like the gatekeepers need to be doing their due diligence in preventing people who are likely to do these sort of things from even being able to utilize a platform. Because if they do their job, then these use cases will be minimized. And obviously you can't keep everybody out, but like I said, it'll be definitely minimized with basic know your customer type stuff, and maybe even more than that if people are from certain higher risk places. But on to the next thing, because as we're talking about high risk things, Tether is launching a new platform following the hack that happened about a month ago in November. So I didn't really look into this that much, but a new platform relating to Tether, count me out. I mean, Tether's on its own is already sketchy, shady, but a new platform, I don't care what it is, it's something to stay away from. And I'm sure people will not stay away from it, and it'll cause problems down the line, but To avoid problems for yourself, just stay away from it. Buyer beware. Credit creeps into crypto. So, a lot of crypto kind of started off being this whole one-to-one, no credit kind of type industry. But now, as it's maturing, it's being more traditionalized. And four big credit examples were mentioned. First one was people taking out loans and taking out mortgages and all that for bitcoins. That's just stupid. Don't do that. I'm sure a lot of people did this recently because I've seen, can't really confirm it or not, but somebody on Twitter was claiming that they did that thing and they had to sell it at a loss because they had a family to feed, when at the start they shouldn't have been doing something that stupid in the first place. Only put in what you're willing to go to zero. So that's definitely something we shouldn't be having. But the next two seem kind of unavoidable because they revolve around exchanges and services that offer leverage to either users or institutional investors. So this is going to be unavoidable as long as exchanges are the primary means. And even, well, the institutional side of things, you might as well just forget about that. That's going to happen anyway. But for run-of-the-mill people, it's the exchange's fault that this is permissible. So I doubt people are going to switch to decentralized exchanges where they have to be one-to-one all the time. There's way too many people who love trading on leverage, and with the volatility of crypto, that's sometimes a gamble. So, and the final situation is tethers, and that's potentially worse than the loan situations, and we'll only see how bad that whole situation plays out. I've been trash talking it for forever, but credit is floating it. Like, these credit situations are flooding into crypto, but you really don't have to participate in them at all if you really don't want to. Leverage for trading, you don't have to do that. You don't have to trade on margin. You don't have to do that. You shouldn't take out any loans for crypto because you don't know how the market's gonna go. And even it's more sensible now that it kind of corrected, but still. And in Tether, you can find plenty on why that's just bad and how it may be more trouble to crypto than a lot of things. Next up is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority has sent out a little beware of public stocks that tout cryptocurrency connection. So this has been very common as things are getting more popular. Companies suddenly putting crypto in their name or claiming they're now doing blockchain related technology. The biggest recent one was Long Island iced tea or something, adding that they're pivoting to blockchain technology, which makes no sense. And this little self-regulatory organization has kind of sent out a little warning that be aware and be wary of any company that's doing this because it's pretty fraudulent. So do that yourself, but I'm sure not a lot of people listening care about traditional stocks. Russia is introducing cryptocurrency regulation next week, and Russia is getting regulation, and it'll be interesting to see how it compares to the rest of the world because they're kind of on the more hostile side for crypto, if I remember correctly. they were really hostile to miners and exchanges in particular. And even if these laws tend to be restrictive, I don't think it will be that, it won't matter that much considering Russia isn't really a major player. And even in a case when China was kind of got restrictive on crypto, that didn't do too bad of a blow. Right now, if that happened to South Korea, I think there'd be a pretty big blowback. Not so much in Bitcoin, even if there definitely would be, but like a lot of ICOs are benefiting from the Asia market like tremendously, and I think that'd be the hardest hitting, the kind of area that's hit the hardest if something like this. Well, restrictive laws in general would hit Korea. I don't see it happening in Japan, but next up, why recent Bitcoin price drop was long overdue and how it recover. So basically, if you've been in crypto long enough, you know this would happen. Or if you've been listening to me, I've been throwing out cautions that this was inevitable, that it wasn't sustainable to add this much in a short time and for it to keep going to higher highs. And of course, there's people who still claim, no matter what real sensibility or anything would say, that you can't have constant higher highs. You can't keep going. Growth doesn't keep growing without coming down occasionally. Even if in 5 years we could be like $100,000, $500,000 per Bitcoin, short term, you can't add thousands of dollars and expect it to maintain the same price or keep going higher without slipping down occasionally. And if you look at the source article, one of the things that they point out is that the same kind of pattern has happened 6 times before, and obviously you can expect Bitcoin to rise back up, but it's really nothing to be alarmed about. It makes total sense. For if you kind of bought in recently, then you just have to take the L and chill out for a couple months as everything recovers back up in price. And 2018 might shape up to be an even better year as adoption keeps skyrocketing, and hopefully these exchanges can actually cater to new users soon. So just kind of hang in there. These higher highs, hype dies, and this is especially true with higher market cap and higher volume coins, where you can't expect breakout growth to keep going and exploding to another breakout growth. That really only happens with things that are kind of on the lower end, that are going to reach its truer short-term potential. Next up, Tim Swanson, enterprise blockchains in a trove of disillusionment. So this is actually kind of obvious that enterprise adoption takes years to happen, but Swanson's kind of citing that people, like all these ICOs that we're seeing, is evidence to the fact that they can't compete on the enterprise level, or they wouldn't make as much money if they catered to enterprises compared to them catering to people who want to get rich quick off doing these ICOs and quick flipping these coins that might not even do anything. So that's one thing. Swanson sees that projects that are trying to build off existing financial infrastructure are also the more likely ones that are going to get used, rather than the ones that try to build some entirely new tech for the financial services to switch over to. Kind of saying that isn't a realistic expectation. And of course, that's really, once you kind of like sit back and calm your excitement about all the technology, you do realize that that's a very realistic take on things, that you will not be destroying any kind of current infrastructure anytime soon. That'll take years and years for it to actually happen, and it might happen quickly when it happens, but coming out with a new technology, you won't see it being adopted by big companies that need kind of the security of, there isn't something like a little small detail that will destroy everything or cause a lot of damage. Like, no one's going to be using smart contracts anytime soon for super important things, because it's really still an unexplored technology that you don't really know what could go wrong. As we've seen, there's already been plenty that has gone wrong with utilizing smart contracts. So, Enterprise isn't there yet, but eventually we'll make it there. Belarus. Cryptocurrencies and ICOs are now legal and tax-free for 5 years. So they're trying to attract companies by this whole tax-free and streamlining all the legal stuff, and turning Belarus into a hub for crypto. And I don't think anyone could have saw this coming, considering Belarus is not really on a radar for crypto until now. So it'll be kind of interesting to see if it really does work in attracting a lot of people to that country. However, I don't know how many are going to stay after the 5 years of being tax-free, considering most crypto businesses are pretty small, and it probably wouldn't be that hard to pick up and go somewhere else. And because 5 years is a long time for another country to do something similar or be more permissive at the time for whatever they're doing. And I don't think businesses should think this gives them the free pass to throw down some scammy ICOs in Belarus, because messing with the wrong country can still get you in some very international legal trouble if you're offering your crowd sale to the wrong countries. Because I've recently been educated that offering any kind of like investments to US citizens still puts you at risk of kind of facing the wrath of the SEC, despite not being an American company, which is really what happened to that Plexcoin situation of them being Canadian and finding themselves in trouble. So that's why you see people kind of not allowing US citizens ever, because they don't want to go through the process of registering as a security. It's because they could open themselves up to very, very big legal troubles if they did. And it was kind of surprising to learn how just that little fact actually opens up jurisdiction to the SEC. Next up, crypto malware targets Facebook Messenger. So beware of clicking links on anything, not just Facebook Messenger. Telegram, especially if this new Telegram app is going to allow you to send crypto to people, that is going to be an interesting thing to see how scammers utilize that. So just be careful with links. Try to, before even clicking on anything, confirming that one, it's a trusted person that you're clicking the link from, and two, it's actually that person and not someone pretending to be that person with fonts that are very similar to the username. That's important to confirm that you're actually taking a link from that person. Then just avoid a lot of trouble being cautious about links. And this new malware is kind of similar. Well, anyone who used Skype will know this. It's the one that tricks people into downloading something because their contact sent them a file, and a lot of people don't think anything of it if they're not really tech literate. They'll just be like, oh, they're sending me something and I'm gonna check it out. So they get infected, and there you go. Now they're mining crypto. So this one works just like that. However, it's only effective for the desktop version of Messenger, which is good since I'm sure most people actually use it on mobile. It'd be interesting to see someone target mobile. You have to definitely get a lot of people because you're not mining much off phones. But just be aware of links and all that. Keep yourself safe out there. You don't want to end up losing more than just your computer speed. You could lose your crypto too if you're not careful. So Cryptopia exchange users are growing more concerned over their locked accounts. So there might be exchange foul play. This is definitely a call to why we need atomic swaps and more decentralized exchanges. Centralized exchanges are just proving that they're super vulnerable, and hopefully this exchange is just experiencing poor customer service or incompetence rather than being up to something sinister. It's always worrying to hear news about an exchange being behaving oddly, because they could easily go down with a lot of people's money very quickly, or accidentally lose people's money very quickly. And finally, utility, the defining word for tokens in 2018. So a lot of coins are riding off the hype of crypto more than anything, because a Bloomberg article has shown that out of 226 coins that they looked at, only 20 of them are using their tokens to run the network, and that's less than 10%. So while the article believes that there will be less useless tokens in 2018, I disagree just a bit, maybe just more than a bit, mainly because until all investors have some kind of law that encourages kind of legal ramifications for actually not carrying through or delivering what was promised, I don't see these useless tokens not being made if they can just make themselves be like, oh, we failed in the end, but we were trying, and then just close down shop. So if all ICOs had to comply to like a similar standard to the security regulation that is in the US, you definitely see a decrease. So if there's not any major legal backlash, like I said, you really can't expect much to change. However, what could be a defining moment, because I recently talked to a security lawyer, and you'll see that episode next month, that more and more US ICOs are actually going through that process, and the coins that go through that security registration process and make themselves available to be invested in by US citizens and all that and since they went through that whole process, that shows that they're a safer investment and they can be relied upon in comparison to some investment in this tax haven company or whatever that has all these legal kind of protections on it. So that actually might be a factor that could contribute to less useless tokens coming out, since they'll have a lot of competitive pressure in more regulated spaces to not just be garbage. But the interesting thing about the article is prices for the because I read the Bloomberg article and it said prices for ones that had working products actually started out lower than the ones that didn't. So who knows what will really happen. I'm hoping that this competitive pressure will make people more critical, and especially since I think ICO fever is really over for the most part. We probably won't see as much money as we did in the past summer floating into them as until this batch of more regulated and approved ones come through. So that's all for today. Merry Christmas to all, and enjoy the holidays. But don't just enjoy the holidays. Be ready for the super special episode on Saturday that you should be excited for, because it's a very interesting interview with probably my biggest name yet. So hopefully I'll get even more big names after this interview's thrown down with some hot, fresh off the press news that I wish I could yell exclusive, but it probably won't be. But it'll just be the first scoop, hopefully. So stay tuned for Saturday. But stay even more tuned in for the episode on Thursday. And before you close out, don't forget to rate and review the podcast if you're listening on Apple, if you're listening to iTunes or Google Play Music, or even Spotify or whatever podcasting thing you're listening to. So, rate and review on whatever platform you're using right now. That helps me out. And I'll see you next time on the Crypto Spin Through Podcast.